and this is Weaponized. We've never really had a congressional hearing where credible people come up and they say, like, I am a pilot, this is what I saw. That's never been official, that's never happened?
Not that I know of, no. Okay. I mean, we've been hoping that was going to happen. You know, in the wake of December 2017, the New York Times story, the public has been calling for it, but I think there's a real appetite for something like that to happen.
So if we move forward to where it wasn't official, but there was mock congressional hearings, which is something that I was heavily involved with. My friend Ruben Langdon was the guy that really produced it, set it up, had 40 witnesses over a week testify at the National Press Club in like a mock congressional hearing. It's called the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure. We've made it completely free on YouTube. It's like the C-SPAN of UFOs. It's kind of boring, but you have awesome people coming up and giving firsthand direct eyewitness testimony, plus scientists and all that other stuff and researchers. That was a very cool event. And to be part of it when I was just kind of jumping in a little bit to the UFO thing was really fun because I got to meet a lot of people. But I thought it was a great thing to do. The whole thing was, is Congress ever going to take this seriously?
Yeah, well, you know, those were former members of Congress that were the ones asking the questions at a citizen hearing, right?
I should have said that, yeah. So 5 congressmen, 1 senator, I believe, we had up there asking the questions for over a week. I mean, it was amazing. But what I'm saying is, would it ever be official? Back then in 2013, we're wondering if there was ever going to be an official hearing. Now, we kind of got hearings. We kind of did. Let's talk about those maybe.
Yeah, so, you know, the public, the UFO public, has been demanding hearings for a long time. They think that that's the way to get to the bottom of it. A congressional hearing is not the perfect investigative tool to use to get to the heart of a matter. It is useful. It's useful for engaging the public, for showing that Congress is doing the will of the public and digging into something that the public is interested in. But I think that probably in reality, you can get a lot more done behind closed doors, having the kind of witnesses that we know have been appearing before Congress for a number of years now. December 2017, the New York Times comes out with this story that talks about ATIP. And although the story got some things wrong, the fact that there had been an ongoing investigation that had been engineered by Harry Reid and 2 of his colleagues, that they'd secured $22 million that went into a program called ALSAP. ATIP kind of got the credit for it in this news story, but ALSAP was the name of the program, and they created the world's largest UFO database. Now, the public hasn't seen it, Congress hasn't seen it, but there are agencies that are using that database right now. After that New York Times story came out in December 2017, members of Congress were amazed that this had been going on, and they had no idea it was underway. So they started calling. I know Senator Harry Reid had shared with me, hey, I'm getting the phones ringing off the hook with my former colleagues who want to know, what's the deal on this? Is this real? And because Reid had said, yeah, it's real, and we've been digging into it, and this was a real program, members of Congress started asking for briefings. And in early 2018, a series of witnesses started appearing behind closed doors, first for congressional staffers, intelligence and armed services committees, where these witnesses, I think people like Dave Fravor and others would tell them what they had seen, the Tic Tac incident, the gimbal incident, about programs and investigations that Congress had no idea were underway, or that the public had paid for this stuff. So members of Congress started hearing from their staff. This looks real. They started getting briefings in 2018. And after that, it became like the hottest ticket on Capitol Hill. Everyone became interested. They weren't so much out in front of the issue saying, we want to get to the bottom of the UFO mystery, but they were very cautiously proceeding to figure out whether it was real or not.
And I think that's really smart. And I want to distinguish the difference for our audience of closed door briefings and open briefings, because that's what we're kind of where we're going with this episode. I want to talk about that, but they're very important and they're very different. So, for example, we actually broke the information with Commander Fravor on stage in Oregon that he had been having and doing these briefings for Senate and staff and all that stuff.
Working with some folks at the DIA, gets interested in this subject enough to where he initiates a program. A friend of yours, Lou Elizondo, had his own slice of a study, ATIP, looking at nuts and bolts, flying saucers, encounters with military units. We have reported that Congress is now interested, that the congressional staffers, closed-door briefings with pilots, with witnesses, and that now elected members of Congress are looking at it without crossing a line or violating confidence. Can you speak about that in general terms?
There is an interest in this at very high levels. Yes, there are people that think this is very important to look at. There were two of us that went and talked to people. We've done it multiple times. I think it's important. What do you got to lose? Would you guys spend $22 million over 5 years to maybe find something that you would change the way we do life?
So he was doing that behind closed doors. And the reason he was doing that, and a lot of other people have come forward, is because there's only certain things that could be said without jeopardizing national security. So these closed door briefings are really important because what they're doing is they're saying, here's what I know, here's a program name, this is what I saw. They don't want competing technologies or foreign adversarial nations to know. As you always say, you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. So the closed door briefings are very important. But look, everybody's looking for transparency. We need open briefings with the best information that we can put out without putting our country in jeopardy. You'll notice in the next couple of hearings we're about to talk about, every time something sensitive came up, like, have we detected UFOs underwater? Closed door, better for closed door. Because we have incredible sensors under the water to detect UAP or UFO, and they have been detected, but that's not something that is, readily going to be put out to our friends and enemies on national television. So, closed door briefings are important, but open door briefings also are. But what I saw in what comes next is they said the first briefings in over 50 years. Do you remember that first one ran by Representative Carson? Right? Can you tell me what that meant for us?
Well, it was huge. It was the first public hearing on the UFO issue in front of Congress in 54 years. After those revelations of 2017 and the briefings that started in 2018, Congress became interested in this, and they foisted upon the Department of Defense, the creation of an organization to investigate this stuff. Unofficially, there had been something that became the UAP Task Force that existed starting in 2018. Our friend Jay Stratton was the head of it. And he put together a network of people throughout the government who helped collect information on this. He put together a briefing document that then was delivered to members of Congress, Joint Chiefs, defense contractors, and others, and sort of did a state of the issue statement on what we know, the kinds of cases that are worthy of investigation, proving that this is a legitimate mystery. Congress then formally created the UAP Task Force and gave them the authority to go after this. That task force later became ARROW, or actually it was something else in between.
AIMSOG,
AIMSOG, the most improbable acronym in the history of programs. And then that became ARROW and headed by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. But the House in May of 2022 held the first hearing, 54 years, and it was a big disappointment. I think it was a classic case of the public expectations exceeding what really could happen.
Well, hold on. I wasn't disappointed. You're always disappointed with stuff that I'm not. Maybe I'm naive, but check this out, man. I thought it was cool as fuck. So here's the deal. We heard it was coming. This was our little insertion into cracking that egg. So we heard we knew that something was going on. It was coming. We thought, well, how can we get some of the real issues, put forward? So we decided to launch some footage and images that we had, you from the East Coast, me from the West Coast. They didn't have some of that information. That ended up coming up in that hearing. I had a coffee drop moment during that.
Mr. Corbell and others have been collecting data on this issue for years.
It was crazy, right? Yeah. So what I was seeing, the positive thing was we started pushing, as did a lot of people, started pushing. And even though there was kind of attitude by Moultrie and Bray, who were up there testifying, I guess, they were being pressured. So Representative Carson started off by saying, the stigma has lasted too long. It's corrosive. What are you doing? You don't even have an active director yet. So I felt it was great. It was great because Congress was pushing for answers. Now, those answers, whatever they are, maybe they're not as good as all we want, but at least they were pushing hard. That was a cool hearing.